Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to Speak and Stories, a place where every story lights a little spark in your heart. Long ago, in a peaceful little village surrounded by green hills, there lived a humble man named Elias and his gentle wife, Mara. They worked from dawn to dusk, tending their small patch of land. Life was hard. Their hands were rough, their roof leaked when it rained, and their greatest sorrow was that they had no children. One stormy night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Elias was returning from the fields when he heard a faint cry. He followed the sound and found a tiny baby, wrapped in a soft, soaked blanket, lying beside the old oak tree near his farm. Shocked, he lifted the child in his trembling arms and ran home. Mara gasped when she saw the baby, then tears filled her eyes. "Elias," she whispered, "maybe heaven has sent this child to us." And from that night onward, they raised the boy as their own son. Years passed. The child, they named him Rowan, grew into a strong, kind-hearted young man. He worked beside his parents in the fields, tilling, planting, and carrying heavy pails of water under the blazing sun. While others complained, Rowan stayed silent, patient, and steady. Over time, something special happened. The crops he touched grew greener, the grains heavier, and his fields richer than anyone's. But instead of being proud, the villagers became jealous. Whispers spread. He must be using tricks. Some mocked him. Others secretly broke his tools or trampled his young crops. Still, Rowan never raised his voice. He simply smiled, worked harder, and greeted even his enemies with kindness. Then one terrible year, the rains wouldn't stop. The river burst its banks, flooding the farms. Crops were washed away. Food ran out, children cried from hunger, and despair spread through the village. Only Rowan had some grain left, stored safely in his shed. He could have kept it all for his family, but his heart would not let him. So one night, while the village slept, Rowan quietly cooked warm meals and placed them in baskets at people's doors. At sunrise, the villagers awoke to find food waiting for them. No one knew who had helped them. But that unseen kindness kept them alive through the famine. Even then, during the day, some still mocked Rowan. They never realized that the hands they insulted were the same ones that fed them. One evening after a long day's work, Rowan sat outside his hut and whispered, "Why do people repay goodness with pain? Why does kindness feel so lonely?" But someone had seen the truth. An old man named Thomas, too frail to farm but sharp of eye, had watched Rowan's nightly kindness. The next morning, as the villagers gathered in the square, Thomas raised his voice. "You call him a liar and a cheat. But do you know who has been feeding you in the dark of night? It is Rowan. Without him, most of you would have starved." A hush fell over the crowd. Shame burned in their hearts as they turned to look at Rowan, not with envy this time, but with guilt and awe. That evening, riders arrived carrying the royal seal. They announced that years ago the king and queen had lost their infant son in a storm. After long searching, clues had led them to this very village. When the royal guard saw Rowan, they gasped. For on his shoulder was a birthmark in the shape of a crescent moon, the same mark the lost prince was said to have. The truth was revealed. Rowan was the missing prince of the realm. Soon the king and queen arrived themselves. They ran to their son, tears streaming down their faces, and embraced him tightly. The villagers bowed low, remembering how cruelly they had treated him. Anger filled the king's heart. "They mocked my son. They will pay for this," he ordered. But Rowan stepped forward, knelt, and said softly, "Father, Mother, if I could forgive them when I had nothing, how can I punish them now? Let mercy rule, not anger." The king's eyes softened. The queen wept. and the villagers cried openly, ashamed and moved by the young man's grace. From that day forward, Rowan was not only known as the heir to the throne, but as the Prince of Kindness Elias and Mara, the humble couple who had raised him, were honoured and brought to live in the royal palace. They spent the rest of their days surrounded by love and peace, and the story of the lost prince became a legend, a reminder that jealousy and cruelty may rise like storms. But they always fade. Only kindness lasts, leaving behind light, hope, and love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.